When news broke that Phil Robertson had passed, his family braced for grief, but no one could have predicted the storm that followed. The man who preached simplicity, faith, and discipline left behind a reality far more intricate than anyone imagined. When the lawyer finally opened Phil's final instructions, silence swept over the Robertson family, heavy and unbroken. In the months leading up to May 2025, Phil's health deteriorated swiftly. His early-stage Alzheimer's, made public in December 2024, progressed faster than anyone could have anticipated. Forgetfulness, once minor, became disorientation. The man who had built an empire and weathered decades of controversy now struggled with the simplest of daily routines. By April, the truth could no longer be hidden. On the Unashamed podcast, Jace admitted, "He's not good. We're making him comfortable." Phil's body and voice weakened, but his unwavering faith remained. For years, he had told his children, "Don't cry when I die. Dance, sing, but don't cry." On May 25, 2025, Phil passed at home at 79, surrounded by those he loved most. Jace shared the news first, followed by Willie and Corey, expressing both sorrow and gratitude. The funeral was private, just as Phil had wanted. Yet it wasn't the ceremony that shook the family. It was what awaited them at the lawyer's office. Reading Phil's handwritten letters and final instructions, the tears finally came. For the first time, the family realized Phil's final days weren't just about leaving this world. They were about preparing everyone else to live without him. The reading of his will took place the day after the funeral, behind closed doors in a West Monroe lawyer's office. Present were Miss Kay, his wife of more than 50 years, their sons Alan, Jace, Willie, and Jep, and Phyllis, the daughter Phil discovered later in life and embraced wholeheartedly. They expected a straightforward division of assets. What they received was deeply personal. Phil had prepared handwritten letters for each family member, uneven, shaky from illness, but unmistakably his. These weren't about money. They were confessions, apologies, blessings, and guidance for the future. Each letter paired a portion of his estate with a message explaining why he gave it and how he hoped the recipient would continue his legacy. Miss Kay inherited the family estate, built from years of surviving on little more than the swamp's offerings. Alan received Phil's collection of religious writings. Jace and Jep were entrusted with shares of Duck Commander, tasked with guarding its traditions. Phyllis was given land and a heartfelt apology for the years she hadn't known her father. Willie, who had propelled Duck Commander into the mainstream, received the controlling stake, alongside a message to protect the faith, protect the legacy. When the final envelope was opened, tears flowed, not for the money, but for the man who had created it all from the swamps. Born in 1946, Phil grew up poor, where hunting was survival. Poverty shaped him into a tough, self-reliant, and defiant man. A gifted athlete, he earned a football scholarship to Louisiana Tech, starting as quarterback in 1966-67 with Terry Bradshaw as his backup. But Phil walked away from football in pursuit of freedom to hunt, famously saying, "I'd rather hunt ducks than have large, violent men stomp me in the dirt." In 1972, he turned that freedom into Duck Commander, hand-carving duck calls at home, while Miss Kay, pregnant at 17, stood by his side. For years, the couple scraped by on faith and what they could gather from the bayou. The business grew steadily until Willie returned from college with a vision to modernize it, transforming a small family operation into an empire. The fortune that made Phil a multimillionaire was rooted in poverty, sacrifice, and family unity. His letters weren't just about wealth. They carried a story and legacy meant to guide future generations. Phil Robertson's Duck Dynasty persona showed only part of the man. Behind the fame, few saw his early struggles or the Louisiana swamps he came from. Controversial yet steadfast in faith, he remained influential in conservative circles. And even after the show ended, his legacy continued through spin-offs and the family empire he built. Before fame, Phil's life was turbulent. Alcohol and anger strained his marriage to Kay, who married him at 17, and he sometimes disappeared for days, leaving the family in uncertainty. His turning point came in a small church in West Monroe, where he embraced Christianity, rebuilt his marriage, reconciled with his children, and committed fully to faith and family. Christianity guided the Robertsons for decades, shaping their business, books, speeches, and the Unashamed podcast. Even in his final months, as Alzheimer's progressed, Phil's words remained clear, his convictions intact. The man honored in his will wasn't the millionaire or the TV star. It was the man who rose from failure and lived his faith. The fortune he left was substantial, but it was the redemption, perseverance, and legacy behind it that moved the family to tears. As they absorbed his final letters, one truth settled over them. This was more than an inheritance. It was a roadmap for life without him. Phil Robertson's death was more than personal loss. It marked the end of an era. He came from a time and culture that no longer exists. Self-made Southern entrepreneurs who built their lives with their hands, trusted God above all, and resisted modern influence. His passing closed the final chapter of that world for the Robertsons. After Phil's Alzheimer's diagnosis became public in December 2024, fans braced for the inevitable. But within the family, the decline came faster than anyone expected. By early April 2025, Jace shared on Unashamed, "He's not good. We're making him comfortable." Yet even then, Phil recorded a few final podcast episodes, his voice steady and unwavering. A parting gift, a final message from a man who always spoke with conviction. The private funeral on May 25, 2025, reflected exactly who Phil was. No politicians, no cameras, just his wife, children, grandchildren, and longtime friends. Amid tears, there were moments of laughter, Bible readings, and long contemplative silences carrying the weight of a lifetime of memories. Even in grief, the family stepped into the roles Phil had prepared them for. Willie assumed majority ownership of Duck Commander, Jace continued the podcast, Jep took responsibility for his share of the legacy, and A&E launched Duck Dynasty. The revival, the first season without Phil on screen, but infused with the values and influence he had instilled. Phil's letters weren't about money. They were reminders of who the family was, where they came from, and what he hoped they would carry forward. That's why the family cried. The fortune was meaningful, but the love, wisdom, and responsibility behind it meant far more. Which part of Phil Robertson's final message touches you the most? Share your thoughts below. For more stories about the people who shaped our culture in unforgettable ways, like this video and subscribe for the next chapter. When news broke that Phil Robertson had passed, his family braced for grief, but no one could have predicted the storm that followed. The man who preached simplicity, faith, and discipline